Hi everyone, welcome to our Blessed channel. Here we bring to you stories of blessings from across the world, real stories of healing, hope, celebration, and inner transformation through the experiences and insights of a varied source of guests. I'm Mahita. I'm a principal product engineer at a technology company. I live in the Silicon Valley, Bay Area, California. I have a 13-year-old son who loves physics and who's very cool and kind. And meditation is that secret sauce that brings all the flavors in my life together. Over a decade ago, I stumbled upon Art of Living and its meditation techniques. And what started off as me trying to find tools to manage stress quickly changed with the profoundness of the techniques and the teachings of the founder, Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. It became a source of inspiration and brought a sense of purpose to my life. I've been volunteering with the organization ever since, and I also teach some of the meditation programs now. Today, I'm very delighted to be introducing our guest, Naren Shankar. Naren is an accomplished entrepreneur, leader, public speaker in the technology industry. He is very passionate about growing and scaling businesses. He has enabled successful exits of three technology companies so far. He's currently the co founder of an AI infrastructure based company, which is a startup. He lives in the Silicon Valley, San Jose area with his wife and 11-year-old daughter. Naren has been affiliated with the Art of Living Foundation for over 25 years. He's been teaching over 20 years now various meditation programs, and his programs have benefited thousands across the world, from CXOs of large corporations to faculty members of top universities to Nobel laureates. He truly believes that IT, inner transformation, is a game changer. Naren is a dynamic leader in the Art of Living Foundation. He's responsible for organizing large meditation events from hundreds and thousands of people coming together in California and across the country. We call him the mass meditation expert. Personally, he's been my mentor and role model in inspiring me to lead and organize large workshops. So, welcome, Naren, and a warm welcome to you. I'm really excited to having this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you, Mahita. It's really nice to be here and I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, so we can get started. So, Naren, what is your definition of a blessing?
The definition of blessing, that's an interesting one, you know. In my mind, when we say blessing, it's let's call it as, some kind of favor or protection from a higher power, right? In fact, if you probably Google blessing, that's probably what you will end up seeing, which is like it's God's favor or protection. That's what people call as blessing, right? But you know, putting it into a more scientific explanation, see, many of us probably have plants at our home, right, which we have to water so that they survive, isn't it? But then you have all these forests. I mean, here in California, you have these redwood forests and everything else where nobody waters those plants, but they still survive, right? Because somewhere nature is taking care of those plants, right? So if you look at the universe, even from a very scientific viewpoint, there is a force in the universe that is driving the universe. There is a force in the universe that is taking care of the universe. And sometimes we should just open our eyes to recognize that that force exists, right? And call that God, call that nature, call that the universe itself, call it, those who meditate, you call it self or consciousness. There is that force or that energy that is driving the universe, and invoking that force into the physical realm, that to me is a blessing, right? So you're actually tapping into that divine consciousness or the self and bringing it to the physical world. Just like, like the example that I gave, the trees being taken care of by nature. When you invoke blessings, you actually are able to invoke that higher power into the physical realm and have people experience miracles, healing. I mean, I've, I've experienced quite a bit of personally and in the lives of many, 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 many people. I've seen some remarkable changes happen thanks to blessings, right? And the for me, the only way to look at it is being able to tap into something bigger than us. So that to me is a blessing.
That's actually very profound insight, Naren. Yeah. As you were mentioning, you've experienced stories of blessings and seen stories of blessings around you. Any such story that has stayed with you that you can share?
This happened very recently, actually. I think a few months back. Uh, One of my friends, right, reached out saying that her her close relative was actually in hospital, right, and the doctors had kind of, and this person was in a pretty bad shape, pretty bad shape, and the doctors had kind of given up hope, right? So, and again, I don't want to get into too many details for obvious privacy reasons, but in what had actually happened was this person had actually inflicted some harm on themselves, right? So, and that's how they ended up in hospital. And the whole family was shattered, right? And this person, I mean, the person whom I knew was part of that family, reached out, and they were also like very distraught and said, can you please send blessings? And somehow just sat down, blessed, and also ended up sending a message to Gurudev explaining it, and seeking his blessings too. And the situation was dire. I mean, literally what they said was, doctors have given up hope.
Oh,
And the only thing that could work here is some miracle, right? And we just sat down for a little bit, gave a blessing. And like, as I said, I'd also, messaged Gurudev for the same thing. And within 24 hours, this person who was literally, I mean, like doctors had pretty much written the whole thing off. This person came back to consciousness. And I think I checked in a couple of months back. That person had completely recovered, actually, completely from the jaws of death to full recovery. And then, of course, the person is very grateful and has now done the Art of Living program and all of that. And but it's to me, honestly, it was quite remarkable to watch that, that transformation in a person and just blessings, right? I think, like I said earlier, at some point, when science gives up hope, when doctors give up hope, there is a higher power that could actually change things, right? And to me, honestly, it was truly a miracle to witness. And yeah, I was just grateful that even I could get to witness something like that, right? It was very, yeah, very, very heartwarming. And one other example, I'll just share at a very practical level. I mean, as you said, like last year, around last August or so, we started our company. Now we've grown to about 43 people. And last, I mean, every summer I go to India. My daughter loves, me and my wife. I mean, my in-laws are in Bangalore, my parents are in Chennai, and my daughter loves to spend summers in India. It's kind of been her, like thing over the years. So either my wife drops her and I pick her up, or vice versa. So last year I'd gone to pick up my daughter, and I actually went to meet Gurudev in the ashram there in Bangalore, and just wanted to get his blessings before leaving. And this was, I think it was a Wednesday, and he asked me, like, he asked me how I was, and when I'm going back and all that. And I said I was actually leaving that very next day. And then he thought for a few seconds, and he said, oh, but Friday is the Devi Puja, Varalakshmi Puja. So it's an invocation of the divine, right? So there is a particular
ceremony.
ceremony that's an invocation of the divine energy. So he was like, why don't you stay for that, right? And what has been, I mean, and in this whole time frame, right, the whole summer, what was happening in the background was, I'd started having conversations with a few people about this new AI infrastructure company. And, to be honest, it was kind of, when you start something new, especially yeah, like for most people, right, it's like you already have something good going on. To start something new, there has to be a particular level of conviction that comes in. So I'd been having conversations with few people, with a few investors for like a while, right? And many times in a startup, like sometimes you start with a lot of zeal, enthusiasm, but then all these doubts start creeping in, right? So we started the conversation sometime around April, and by the time August came in, it was kind of we were not sure whether this thing would actually take off or not. And to me, the one, and mentally, I'd made this note that if someone is investing in this business, that's probably a sign from the universe that this business will take off, right? So, and until that point, nobody had actually invested in the business, right? So I'm coming back to this event. So I heard Gurudev, and then my flight was next day, and obviously just scrambled to, if Gurudev says stay for a couple of days, it's the
Correct.
right and the smart thing to do is to stay. So I ended up staying till Saturday, and and I went to this ceremony on Friday, and it is truly incredible because I think when Gurudev said that invocation of that divine energy is there, I could actually, it was very palpable, it was very real, it was very palpable. And I finished that ceremony, and then I just go back. I was staying in the city. I mean, between the city and our Bangalore ashram, it's a solid hour and a half drive one way. And then I was just like, going back, and I just felt very good. I felt very good. And then suddenly I get a call from one of my co-founders, and he just tells me that that we secured our first investment, and right then and there on the journey back, we both changed our LinkedIn profiles, and we said, okay, here is the company. So it was I'm just sharing at a very practical, tangible level, right? I think when that divine energy comes into the human, it comes in contact with the human form, a lot of amazing things happen, right? And it's not just healing and miracles and so on. It also sends you some signals, right? In my case, I was looking for a particular signal, and that signal came in the form of, this blessing. So yeah, so just thought I'll share a very different perspective on a story as well, related to professional life, startup life, entrepreneurship, and so on.
Both are so incredible stories and such powerful stories, Naren. Thanks for sharing. I want to talk a little bit about, I when I shared about you, I said that you're someone who has been so dynamic in art of living. You're someone who has organized several large meditation events. I mean, you do this year after year and so consistently, where hundreds and thousands of people come together on these events. What has been your inspiration over the years, Naren, for organizing these events, and how do you keep yourself and the team motivated?
So two things. One is, obviously, in Art of Living, we all, pretty much everyone in Art of Living is inspired by Gurudev. When, he selflessly travels the world, travels like at about 100, maybe over 100 cities every year, meets so many people and uplifts lives. And when you see that, there is absolutely no other way to look at it than like, wow, this is something truly, truly magical, right? And it's and Gurudev really does it with a smile. I mean, like the amount of travel that he does, the number of people that he meets, and I've seen it from very close quarters in terms of like I've actually traveled with him, to many cities, and it is truly remarkable to see what he does, right? And that is a huge source of inspiration for all of us, right? When you see Gurudev do that, you're like, okay, wow, okay, what can I do to like help him in his mission, right? I think his mission is very simple, which is to bring a smile on everyone's face, a real, genuine, heartfelt smile onto every face, right? And he's been working nonstop for like 43, 44 years with that as his backdrop. And I personally feel like whatever little I can do to like support that mission. And and at a from a different perspective, if you see, every person in this world is longing for something deeper and more meaningful in life, right? I mean, in fact, I tell people that just like food is needed for the body, meditation is needed for the soul, right? I mean, we all eat food and that satiates our hunger, but our soul seeks meditation, right? And and those who have experienced meditation, you can relate to it. It's very, it's a very, it's one of those very deep experiences that one has. In fact, I'll talk a little bit about meditation in a short while, but like, the soul seeks meditation, right? And in my experience, right, having like done this for like whatever the last 25, 26 years, like both facilitating and teaching programs, every single person, I'm not even exaggerating here, right? Every single person whom I've taught, not just me, I'm all teachers have taught programs. Many of them can say the same thing. Every person is like, oh wow, I wish I'd done this earlier. And that, that joy, that's genuine smile that I see on people's faces, that genuine transformation that I see on people's faces, that keeps me going. Right. And we're all fortunate that, we actually, I mean, Gurudev has created a foundation where many of us can be, in fact, anyone can be a teacher or a volunteer as long as there is that intention to serve. There is an intention to create transformation in people's lives. And in fact, most of our teachers, volunteers are all, they do this on a voluntary basis, like you and me. People have their jobs, they have their family, and they still do this because somewhere this brings real satisfaction, right? That may be a bit of a selfish reason because, like, when you do all these things, somewhere deep within you also feel like you're being served. And it's a very hard thing to put into words. But that satisfaction that you get from service is, at least in my experience, far superior to any other kind of satisfaction that you can get in life, right? I mean, we many people struggle all their life wanting to do this, that, like, climb the corporate ladder, do this, do that. And I've met a lot of so-called famous people, successful people, rich people. And you know what? Even people at the pinnacle of success are seeking something more. And if you dig a little deeper, what they're really seeking is their own, they're seeking their own self. They're actually seeking that deep meditative state. And because their soul is longing for that little bit of, what do you call it, that deeper, it's all,
Connection.
yeah, it's a deeper nectar of life, right? That is what the soul is longing for. And when you see that, it is very clear that, instead of do all those things and then still be unfulfilled, you may be full. It's like life can become an expression of joy, right? Versus, instead of being a pursuit of happiness, it becomes an expression of happiness. You meditate, you do a little bit of breath work, and you're able to really, I call it as like a vacuum clean of your consciousness, right? You're able to operate. See, every morning we wake up and brush our teeth. That's dental hygiene, right? Like that, having mental hygiene, right? Being able to, like, remove all the cobwebs in the mind, all the things that have happened, because our mind also tends to hold on to things that are negative, things that are, not good. And somewhere, just like the dental hygiene is needed, mental hygiene is also needed. In fact, in this day and age, I think mental hygiene is, it's not just a luxury, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, and having that practice of breath work, meditation, it's a very amazing thing. And when people have that, then you approach life with, there's some level of composure, there is a particular level of serenity, there's a particular level of, what do you call it? Yes, you do the same things in life, but you don't do things in the pursuit of happiness. You're able to be happy. You're able to operate from the space of fulfillment, contentment. And I've seen a lot of people, I mean, especially people who meditate, people who are, even on the spiritual path, have gone on to experience immense success in the real world too, right? And they're able to experience that success with a smile on their face. Yeah. So many reasons to, like,
Be inspired.
yeah, be inspired. It's like, it's better for the world, it's better for us, it's better for our own body, mind. So, it's yeah, that's what keeps, and of course all the sharings that people have, right? It totally keeps me inspired. And yeah, I mean, and the last thing I would say on it is, it's a true honor and a privilege to be able to do that, right? I think it's to be able to be an instrument for teaching meditation, breath work. It's a true honor and a privilege to be able to do that. And I'm grateful to Gurudev for actually creating that opportunity for all of us.
Beautiful, Naren. And I've been part of these amazing projects with you. And I see when you operate, you're operating with such focus and enthusiasm. And you keep the energy up for the team. And the kind of clarity that you bring, you enable everybody. Anybody on your team can do anything. There is no hierarchy. There is no, like, policing or of any sort. It's such a vibrant environment that keeps the energy going. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that because that brings a lot of joy to the people who are working with you as well.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. So one question I wanted to ask about the Silicon Valley and the current like financial turbulent times that we are seeing, where the job market is impacted and the future trends are also in a way, they don't look that great and people are losing their jobs and their morals. So any piece of advice that you may have for those who are worried about these times?
Yes, I think I I'll address it again from two different perspectives. One is at a very practical level, right? See, every now and then there is some seismic change that happens in the way people, I mean, like for example, back in the early 1900s or early 2000s, I mean, early 20th century, it was automation, right? I mean, these factories and other things created some change. Then I think in like 80s, 90s, the advent of technology brought about a lot of change. And now AI is doing the same, right? So every now and then there is a little bit of, let's call it as that seismic change in technology that creates it creates a change in how things work, right? Like for example, the businesses that were very relevant, even like 3 years back are probably not that relevant now. I mean, I'll give a very simple example, right? I mean, we're about 45 people in our startup, and like a startup like ours, like usually a small startup, there's a lot of emphasis on marketing, right? And 5 years back, if you're starting a company and you need a marketing team, you would have hired like 4 or 5 people, right? But now most startups, in fact, most large companies operate with much, much, much smaller marketing teams because you have all these AI tools that are able to generate and create things, right? So there is, the fact that AI changes certain things, we should not, it's not something that can be denied because it's actually a fact, right? But here's the thing, right? Which is when a change like this happens, there are newer set of skills and newer set of jobs that become more relevant, right? In many ways it is if we can embrace that change, in fact if we can get ahead of that change, right, and embrace it. I mean, like for example, if people are in a particular profession, like for example, I think taxes, law, right? There's quite a few of these professions where I think our current AI tools can do a pretty good job. So if you feel you're in one of these professions, learn how to embrace AI and make it part of your, uh, I mean, utilize AI to improve your productivity. Or if you're in an area which is really getting impacted a lot, it's a good time to upskill and learn something new, right? So we've been brought up in a world where we think, okay, I have an education, I have a job, and this is it. I'm set for, we put a lot of emphasis on depth of expertise, which is fine, right? I mean, if it's a skill that is still relevant, depth of expertise makes sense. But sometimes things get uprooted, right? Like there is a particular skill that's no longer relevant. So I think at a practical level, it's important to be a constant learner, right? I think this kind of steps into more of the wisdom side of it. It's like, having that mindset and being open to learning new things, that creates, that'll help you stay grounded and it'll also help you navigate the change, right? So change is happening. There's no denying that. In fact, it's probably going to get even more significant. But what I also see is on the other side, there is a whole new genre of jobs that get created, right? In fact, to be honest, I probably think like in 2, 3 years from now, the type of jobs will be very, very different. In fact, the education, I mean, right now in Silicon Valley here, it's everyone says STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, math. So there's probably going to be more things that become more relevant, right? And one thing that AI, like for example, if AI can do a lot of things, but things like human empathy, intuition, right? It's like AI can be intellectual, right? But having that intuitive capability, there is a lot that humans can do, which, at least in my opinion, machines will have a hard time doing, at least in the short term, right? So we should also look at those areas where humans can add more value and pivot towards those. So yes, we are in a time of change. Embracing that change is important. So that is at, like, let me call it as at the level of the world, right? But internally, what happens within us when we are forced, I mean, when people lose their jobs, right? People are forced to go through a change, and many times people don't know how to process that from within, right? There's usually fear. fear of fear of the unknown, and fear of what will happen next, right? I think that fear is there. There is uncertainty. Like, will things be okay for me, right? And then there is doubt, which is, am I good enough? Will I be able to get the next job? Will I be able to land the next thing, right? So these three things, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, to address all of that, the spiritual practices can help. I mean, spiritual practices may be a heavy word, but like the practices like breath work and meditation, which kind of help you going back to what I said earlier, like mental hygiene, those things really help, because at that then you're able to actually back yourself up in your job change. You're able to like embrace that. You're able to understand, okay, this is a learning opportunity. Let me upskill myself. Let me learn the things that will help me get better and get the next job, right? And many people have done that, actually. Many people, you know eh, people are in denial. People who are like not able to handle it at a mental level, obviously probably are finding it more challenging. But many people, the people have seen this as an opportunity to upskill themselves and get the necessary mental tools and techniques as well to deal with change, and then march forward. Yeah. So in fact, our own startup, I think we all went into that route that way, right? Which is like, I mean, we're a bunch of entrepreneurs who work together, but somewhere we felt, okay, the way things are working in the world, there is going to be a change, right? And sometimes that's what I mean. Sometimes it's also good to get ahead of the change, right? You see some change happening, you see, okay, you go in and touch what we are at a point right now as a company where we are. It's one of those areas where AI infrastructure, both in terms of investors, in terms of customers, there's a lot of demand, and I'm grateful for that. But I'm just sharing that sometimes these things, like, if you're able to get ahead of the curve and able to see beyond, 6 months, 9 months, it helps one a lot, right? And again, I mean, for me personally, I give all my credit to the meditation practices from Art of Living for this.
It's beautiful, Naren. Yeah, so as we are talking about AI, and I have an AI question for you. Uh,
Sure.
do you think how can AI help spirituality? Can it further spiritual inquiry and meditation practices?
Now, I'll tell you a funny story. Okay. So I was at this JP Morgan conference a few weeks back, and there is all these startups coming and pitching. So there's one startup that came and pitched virtual CXOs.
Okay.
So if there is an agent for the CEO, there is an agent for the CTO, and all these agents are talking to each other. And then the obvious question which comes in everyone's mind is like, if you have an agent for a CEO and an agent, I mean, agent, by the way, is like AI.
Virtual assistant.
Yeah, it's an assistant. It's like, like your own assistant, right? So if you have an agent for a CEO and a CTO, what is the use of a real CEO and a CTO? Right. It's a fair question. It's a very legitimate question. And that got me thinking along the lines of like, it's the one thing that AI cannot do for humans is it cannot meditate for you. It cannot go inwards for you. It cannot give you that deeper understanding of like AI can probably match it. In fact, I think AI can outclass most human intellects, because I just read recently that the IQ of ChatGPT is 159, 160, which is like far more than the average human being. So ChatGPT, all these other models can outthink humans. So we've kind of grown up in a bubble where there was immense value placed on the human intellect, right? It's like, especially in this country, I mean, people say, like, think hard, think harder, you have this chat gpt command, now think hard, and come back, and chat gpt usually thinks better than most human beings. In fact, I jokingly say it, but I also mean it, like, like companies like McKinsey, Bain, and all these consulting companies, their whole business model is centered around strategic thinking, and these tools have incredible strategic thinking powers, right? So, but what AI cannot do, at least based on my understanding of it so far, is to go to deeper levels, right? Intuitive. I mean, humans have this thing called gut feeling, right? Many times we have a gut feeling and we see that things happen per that gut feeling, isn't it? There's that, that intuitive ability that humans have. those type of things I don't think AI can get to, right? And the ability to,
Like
and
you were saying, getting ahead of the curve and like,
exactly,
planning those things that help you
exactly.
in your
Yeah,
company.
and that intuitive ability comes from meditation, which obviously AI cannot do, right? In fact, I think AI is going to make the whole world more spiritual. You're going to see many more people, because it actually, I've heard Gurudev say this where he says like, meditation is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. I think, it's actually becoming like that because if you don't meditate, you're not going to get the right intuitive ideas and you're not able to compete with the rest of the world who is meditating and getting better ideas, right? Because, yeah, you are competing with machines and so on, which, we are in a very, very interesting time in the world, very interesting time, right? I think it's one of those, we're at a very critical juncture in the world and at many levels, right? There's AI, as you see, there's also large scales of global conflict in the mix. It's very interesting, and I think that this is the time where one should actually strive to go inwards. One should strive to get a deeper meaning of life, and no better place to do that than with art of living.
Yeah, buckle up and learn meditation.
Yes.
Yeah, we are coming to the close of the session, Naren. I wanted to ask if there's anything that you'd like to add upon like how meditation has helped you in your personal, professional, and spiritual journey.
For me, honestly, it's been, I learned meditation when I was 19 or 20. And I'm just grateful for it, right? Like I feel, to be honest, I feel if I'd not gotten that opportunity, then my life probably would have gone in a very different direction. And it's it's just been, I think it's been a very, I see, as with everyone else, life's not always been rosy. You go through ups and downs in life. In fact, in Art of Living, we say this, ups and downs are part of living, and smiling through them is the art of living, right? So it's definitely brought a lot of composure. It's brought a lot of like even-mindedness. It's brought a lot of, clarity. It's brought a lot of, let's call it as even, it's also brought a lot of risk-taking ability, right? Like for example, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like when the same four founders, we were actually part of a previous company. And when I joined that company, my daughter was like 6 months old. Right? Conventional wisdom would say, when you have a daughter who's 6 months old, stick to your corporate job, don't go and start something. But somewhere, like what I told you, gut feeling, somewhere my gut feeling was like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to take the plunge and do this startup. And it turned out to be a good idea. I mean, in hindsight, it turned out to be a really good idea, right? So I'd say at a very practical level in day-to-day living, meditation has helped a lot. And more so, I mean, the ability to teach others meditation has been very gratifying. And yeah, I mean, for me, like I like to describe my life as like, that product doesn't exist anymore. It's iPod, right? It's the Apple's iPod. Like I call iPod as inner peace and outer dynamism, right? Inner peace, which comes from meditation, breath work, and outer dynamism, where you're able to carry that energy and operate in the real world. And yeah, I'm very grateful to the Art of Living, grateful to Gurudev, all our teachers, volunteers for, creating such an amazing opportunity. We're very, very grateful. And my only wish is, that everyone gets to experience this in life, right? I think life can really be something so incredible. Many times people look at life as a struggle. That's one way of looking at it. But when you come out of the spiritual path, that same life, which appears to be a struggle, suddenly transforms into, oh, this is a challenge that's in front of me. And you're able to look at things in a very, very, very different way. And that ability to you know, perceive life in a slightly different way brings a huge amount of transformation and a lot of, I think, and I tell people like with techniques like meditation, even success in the world comes to you, right? Success, any form of success that you're seeking, whether it be material, spiritual, whatever it is, it definitely comes running behind you. So all the very best to everyone. And thanks for giving me the opportunity here.
Thank you so much, Naren. I had a wonderful time talking to you and such deep insights and wisdom and all the tips that you had to share. Really appreciate your time and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.